The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the marble floors as Sienna Rosewood tugged nervously at the hem of her crimson silk dress. She shouldn't be here among the city's elite, surrounded by millionaires and socialites who moved through the ballroom like they owned the world. Her best friend Mia had convinced her to attend this charity gala, then promptly abandoned her to network with potential clients. Now, Sienna stood alone beside an elaborate champagne fountain, feeling like an imposter in borrowed jewelry. The music swelled, a slow melody that made her heart ache with loneliness. She considered leaving, but something made her glance across the crowded room one more time. That's when she saw him. He stood near the grand staircase, tall and commanding in a tailored midnight blue suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His dark hair was perfectly styled, but there was something wild in his eyes, something untamed beneath the polished exterior. When their gazes locked, Sienna forgot how to breathe. He moved through the crowd with purpose, never breaking eye contact, and Sienna felt rooted to the spot. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She told herself to look away, to run, but her body refused to obey. When he finally stood before her, she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something distinctly masculine that made her knees weak. His voice was deep and smooth when he spoke, sending shivers racing down her spine. "You look like you're planning an escape route." Sienna laughed despite her nerves. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who feels the same way," he said with a slight smile that transformed his serious face. "I'm Damien Hart, and you're the most captivating woman I've seen in years." "That's quite a bold opening line," Sienna managed, her cheeks flushing with heat. "I prefer to think of it as honest," Damien replied, moving closer. "I don't believe in wasting time with games. Life's too short for pretense." Before she could respond, he extended his hand. "Dance with me, Sienna." "Tell me how you know my name," she said, placing her hand in his despite every rational thought screaming caution. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong, and electricity sparked between them. "Your name tag," he said with a grin, leading her onto the dance floor. "But I would have found out anyway. Some people you're meant to meet." When Damien pulled her into his arms, Sienna felt the rest of the world fade away. They moved together perfectly, their bodies finding a rhythm that felt ancient and familiar. His hand rested on the small of her back, burning through the thin fabric of her dress. She could feel his heartbeat against her chest, steady and strong. "Tell me something real," Damien murmured near her ear, his breath warm against her skin. "Something you don't tell strangers at parties." Sienna found herself being honest in a way she rarely was. "I'm terrified of being ordinary. I take photographs because I want to capture moments that matter, to prove that beauty exists in unexpected places. But most days I feel invisible." "You could never be invisible," Damien said softly. "You glow like a candle in a dark room. Everyone here is just too blind to see it." "What about you?" Sienna asked. "What are you afraid of?" "Being alone," Damien admitted. "I've built an empire, designed buildings that will outlast me, but at the end of the day I go home to an empty apartment and wonder what the point of it all is." The song ended, but neither of them moved. The air between them crackled with tension and possibility. "I don't want this night to end," Damien said, his blue eyes intense. "Come with me." "Where?" Sienna whispered, though she already knew her answer. "Anywhere." "Everywhere. I have a penthouse nearby. We can talk without all these people, without the noise and pretense. Just you and me." Sienna knew she should say no. She'd just met this man. But something in his eyes called to something deep in her soul. It was reckless and terrifying and exactly what she needed. "Yes," she breathed. The elevator ride to his penthouse felt eternal. They stood close but not touching, the air thick with anticipation. When the doors opened directly into his apartment, Sienna gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sparkling below like a carpet of stars. The space was modern and elegant, all clean lines and expensive minimalism. "This is incredible," Sienna said, walking toward the windows. Damien came up behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "The view is better from the balcony." He opened the glass doors, and they stepped into the cool night air. The city hummed below them, alive with possibilities. Damien shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders when she shivered. His hands lingered there, strong and gentle. "Thank you," Sienna said, turning to face him. They were so close now, sharing breath. "I've been thinking about kissing you since the moment we met," Damien confessed, his voice rough. "Then why haven't you?" Sienna heard herself ask, feeling bold. "Because once I start, I won't want to stop," he said. "Maybe I don't want you to stop," Sienna whispered. Damien cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deeply, passionately. Sienna melted against him, her fingers gripping his shirt as his mouth moved over hers with hungry intensity. She'd been kissed before, but never like this, never with this perfect combination of tenderness and desire. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he said quietly. "Not for anything you're not ready for. Just stay, let me get to know you. Let me show you how precious you are." Sienna looked into his eyes and saw honesty there, vulnerability beneath the confidence. "Yes," she said, "I'll stay." They moved inside and Damien poured wine. They sat on his leather sofa, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Damien told her about losing his mother young, about building walls around his heart. Sienna shared her struggles with feeling inadequate, with wanting to matter. "You matter," Damien said, taking her hand. "You matter so much already, and I've only known you for hours. Imagine how I'll feel after more time." The way he looked at her made Sienna feel seen in a way she'd never experienced. When he kissed her again, slower this time, she let herself fall completely. His hands moved into her hair as his mouth explored hers with reverent attention. Her hands slid up his chest, feeling the hard muscles beneath his shirt. Damien pulled back slightly, his breathing ragged. "Sienna, I want you. I want you so badly it's consuming me. But I need you to know this isn't just physical. Something changed in me the moment I saw you. I feel it too," Sienna said, her voice shaky. "It's terrifying and wonderful." "I'll go as slow as you need," Damien promised, kissing her neck softly. "We can wait." But Sienna didn't want to wait. For once in her carefully controlled life, she wanted to follow her heart. "I don't want to wait," she whispered against his lips. "I want you now." Damien stood, pulling her up with him. He led her to his bedroom where moonlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. He turned to face her, his eyes dark with desire but also something deeper, something that looked like reverence. "I need to promise you something first," he said, cupping her face gently. "I'll love you softly. I'll be gentle with every part of you, your body and your heart. This night isn't just about passion. It's about truly seeing each other, about connection." Tears pricked Sienna's eyes at the tenderness in his voice. "That's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me." "I mean every word," Damien said, his thumb stroking her cheek. "You're already precious to me. And I've only known you for hours. Imagine how I'll feel after a lifetime." Morning sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden stripes across the white sheets. Sienna woke slowly, wrapped in warmth and the lingering scent of Damien's cologne. For a moment, disorientation gripped her, then memories of the previous night flooded back in vivid detail. The gala, the dance, the promises whispered in darkness. She smiled, stretching languidly, her body pleasantly sore in ways that made her blush. The bedroom door opened and Damien appeared carrying a tray laden with breakfast. He wore only black pajama bottoms, his chest bare and sculpted in the morning light. Sienna's mouth went dry looking at him, remembering how those muscles had felt beneath her fingers. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, setting the tray on the bed. His eyes were soft, filled with affection that made her heart skip. "I made breakfast." "Well, I ordered it and arranged it prettily." Sienna laughed, pulling the sheet around herself as she sat up. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," Damien said, sitting beside her and brushing hair from her face. "Last night was the most incredible night of my life, Sienna. I need you to know this wasn't just a one-night thing for me. I want to see you again. I want to see you every single day." Her heart soared at his words. "I want that too. Being with you feels right in a way I can't explain." "Then stay," Damien said simply, his blue eyes intense. "Move in with me. I know it sounds crazy. I know it's fast. But I'm 31 years old and I've never felt this way about anyone. Life is too short to waste time pretending we don't know what we want. And I want you, Sienna. Every morning, every night, every moment in between, Sienna should have been terrified. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was too much too soon. But looking into Damien's sincere eyes, feeling the warmth of his presence, she knew her answer with absolute certainty. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll stay." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of happiness Sienna had never imagined possible. She moved her belongings into Damien's penthouse and they fell into an easy rhythm. Mornings began with coffee and conversation on the balcony, watching the city wake below them. Damien would leave for his architecture firm while Sienna worked on her photography projects. Evenings were spent cooking together, though neither was particularly skilled, laughing at their culinary disasters and ordering takeout instead. But it wasn't the grand gestures that made Sienna fall deeper in love. It was the small moments. The way Damien always made sure her favorite tea was stocked. How he'd surprise her with flowers for no reason. The way he'd pull her close while they watched movies, his fingers tracing absent patterns on her skin. The way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. "Sienna, I need to tell you something," Damien said one evening as they sat on the balcony under the stars. He seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. "What is it?" Sienna asked, taking his hand. "I love you," he said simply. "I'm completely, desperately, hopelessly in love with you. I have been since that first night. Maybe even since that first glance across the ballroom." Tears filled Sienna's eyes as joy exploded in her chest. "I love you too, Damien. I love you so much it terrifies me." "Don't be afraid," he said softly, pulling her into his lap. "I'm here. I'm real. This is real." He kissed her deeply, pouring all his emotion into that kiss. When they pulled apart, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sienna's breath caught. "Marry me," Damien said, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring that caught the starlight. "I know people will say we're crazy. I know they'll say it's too fast. But I don't care about anyone else's timeline. I know you're the one, Sienna. You're my forever. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Sienna sobbed, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." Damien slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, like it was always meant to be there. He kissed her again, deeply, passionately, and then carried her to their bedroom where they made love with new intensity. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a vow. The following weekend, they drove to meet Sienna's parents. Her mother, Grace, was a retired schoolteacher with kind eyes and graying brown hair. Her father, Thomas, was a mechanic with weathered hands and a protective streak a mile wide. They lived in a modest 2-story house in the suburbs, worlds away from Damien's penthouse. "Mom, Dad," Sienna said nervously as they sat in the living room, "I have someone I want you to meet. This is Damien Hart, my fiancé." Grace's hand flew to her mouth while Thomas's eyes narrowed. "Fiancé?" Grace repeated. "Sienna, you never even mentioned you were dating anyone." "It happened fast," Sienna admitted, her hand finding Damien's. "But when you know, you know. Damien makes me happier than I've ever been." Thomas stood, gesturing for Damien to follow him outside. While the men talked on the porch, Grace pulled Sienna into the kitchen. "Honey, are you sure about this? You've always been so careful, so planned. This seems so unlike you." "That's exactly why I'm sure, Mom," Sienna said, her eyes shining. "I've spent my whole life being careful, being practical. And I was miserable. Damien makes me feel alive. He sees me, really sees me. I love him." Outside, Thomas crossed his arms and studied Damien with the intensity of a man who'd protect his daughter against anything. "My daughter is my whole world, young man. If you hurt her, there's nowhere you can hide." "Sir, I understand your concern," Damien said respectfully, "but I love Sienna with everything I am. I will spend every day of my life making her happy, protecting her, cherishing her. You have my word as a man." Thomas studied him for a long moment, then extended his hand. "Welcome to the family, son. But I'm watching you." When they rejoined the women, Grace was already making wedding plans, talking about flowers and venues. Sienna caught Damien's eye and smiled. He winked back, and she felt her heart overflow with love. That evening, they drove to meet Damien's father, Vincent. The elder Hart lived in a sprawling estate outside the city, surrounded by manicured gardens. He was a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and the same intense blue eyes as his son. He'd been distant since Damien's mother passed away a decade ago, throwing himself into his shipping business to avoid grief. "So, you're the woman who finally melted my son's frozen heart," Vincent said, shaking Sienna's hand. His grip was firm, his gaze assessing. "I think he melted mine first," Sienna replied with a warm smile. Over dinner, Vincent shared stories about Damien as a child, about his late wife Elizabeth, about watching his son build an empire while keeping everyone at arm's length. "I worried he'd end up like me," Vincent admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "Alone in a big house with nothing but memories and regrets. But I see the way he looks at you, Sienna. That's real love. That's the kind of love Elizabeth and I shared. She would have adored you." Damien's eyes grew misty. "Dad," he said quietly. "Thank you." The wedding took place 3 weeks later in a beautiful garden at sunset. White roses hung from every archway, and soft classical music played as Sienna walked down the aisle on her father's arm. She wore a simple ivory gown that flowed like water, her hair loose and adorned with small white flowers. When Damien saw her, tears filled his eyes. She was breathtaking, an angel come to earth. When she reached him, he took both her hands in his, and they both felt the rightness of this moment, the inevitability of their union. The officiant spoke about love and commitment, but Sienna barely heard. She was lost in Damien's eyes, in the future she saw reflected there. They'd written their own vows. Damien went first, his voice thick with emotion. "Sienna, from the moment I saw you across that ballroom, my world changed. You brought light into my darkness. You taught me that love doesn't have to hurt, that vulnerability is strength. I promise to cherish you, to honor you, to love you softly every single day for the rest of our lives. You are my heart, my home, my everything." Sienna was crying happy tears as she spoke. "Damien, you showed me what it means to be truly seen. You made me believe I was worthy of this kind of love. I promise to stand by your side through all of life's adventures. I promise to love you fiercely and tenderly, to be your partner in all things. You are my best friend, my lover, my forever." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Damien pulled Sienna into a passionate kiss that made their small crowd of family and friends cheer. "I love you, Mrs. Hart," he whispered against her lips. "I love you, Mr. Hart," she whispered back, her heart so full she thought it might burst. This was happiness. This was everything. The honeymoon in Santorini was paradise. They spent 2 weeks in a private villa overlooking the Aegean Sea, its white walls and blue shutters like something from a dream. Days were spent exploring ancient ruins and swimming in crystal-clear water. Nights were filled with passion, making love under the stars on their private terrace, the sound of waves providing a sensual soundtrack. One evening, as they watched the famous Santorini sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Damien pulled Sienna close. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For taking a chance on me that first night. For trusting me when you had every reason to be cautious. For loving me. You've given me everything, Sienna." "You did the same for me," she replied, turning to kiss him. That first night really did change everything. When they returned home, reality settled in, but it was a beautiful reality. They fell into the rhythm of married life with ease. Damien continued designing buildings while Sienna worked on opening her photography studio. They talked about starting a family, about the house Damien wanted to design for them. Everything felt perfect, blessed, like they'd been given a gift most people only dreamed of. 3 months after the wedding, Sienna decided to surprise Damien at his office. She'd gotten good news. Her first major photography exhibition had been approved, and she wanted to share it with him in person. She picked up his favorite lunch from the Italian place they loved and headed to his firm's downtown office building. The receptionist smiled and waved her through. "Mrs. Hart, he's in his office." "Go right up." Sienna took the elevator to the top floor where Damien's private office overlooked the city. His door was partially open and she could hear voices inside. She was about to knock when she heard a woman's voice, soft and intimate. "You can't keep doing this, Damien. She deserves to know the truth." Sienna froze, her hand halfway to the door. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, but she couldn't move. "I know," Damien's voice replied, heavy with something that sounded like guilt. I just need more time. Rachel, you have to understand. The situation is complicated. Who was Rachel? Sienna's mind raced. She pushed the door open slowly, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Damien stood by his desk with a beautiful blonde woman in an expensive business suit. They weren't touching, but the intimacy between them was obvious in their body language, in the way they looked at each other. "Sienna," Damien said, his face going pale, "I didn't know you were coming." "Who is this?" Sienna asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Her voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "This is Rachel Montgomery," Damien said quietly. "My business partner, and my ex-fiancé." The world tilted sideways. "Ex-fiancé? You never mentioned an ex-fiancé." "We broke up 2 years ago," Rachel said, her green eyes sympathetic. "But we remained close. We still work together." "Sienna, I can explain," Damien started, moving toward her, but she stepped back. "Explain what? That you have a history with someone you see every day? That you kept this from me?" Her voice was rising now, pain and betrayal mixing into something sharp and cutting. "It's not like that," Damien said, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "Rachel and I ended things amicably. We're friends, business partners, nothing more." "Then why didn't you tell me about her?" Sienna demanded, tears starting to fall. "Why did I have to find out like this?" "Because I knew you'd react this way," Damien said, then immediately looked like he regretted it. "I mean, I didn't want you to worry about something that isn't an issue." "Not an issue?" Sienna repeated, her voice breaking. "You kept a major part of your life secret from me. What else haven't you told me? What else are you hiding?" "I'm not hiding anything," Damien insisted, but his eyes wouldn't quite meet hers. "Sienna, please, don't do this. Don't let this come between us." But it was already between them. Sienna could feel it, a crack forming in the foundation of their perfect love story. "I need to go," she said, backing toward the door. "Sienna, wait," Damien said, reaching for her. "Don't be afraid. We can talk about this." "You told me not to be afraid," she said, her voice hollow. "That first night you promised to love me softly. You promised I'd be safe with you. But you lied." "I didn't lie about anything," Damien said desperately. "I love you. That was never a lie." "But you kept secrets," Sienna said, the words tasting like ash. "And if you can keep this secret, what else are you capable of hiding?" She turned and ran before he could respond, ignoring his calls after her. She made it to the elevator, to her car, driving blindly through tears until she found herself at her parents' house. Grace took one look at her daughter's face and pulled her inside. "What happened?" she asked, guiding Sienna to the couch. "He lied to me, Mom," Sienna sobbed. "Not about loving me, maybe, but about his past. He has an ex-fiancé he works with every day and he never told me. I had to find out by accident." "Oh, honey," Grace said, holding her daughter close. "That must have been such a shock." "He said he was protecting me," Sienna continued, her voice breaking. "He said he didn't want me to worry. But how can I trust him now? How can I believe anything he says?" The next few days were agony. Damien called and texted constantly, begging her to come home so they could talk. Sienna ignored most of them, but his messages tore at her heart. "Please come home. I miss you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Rachel. Let me explain everything. I love you. Nothing else matters but that." But it did matter. Trust mattered. Honesty mattered. Finally, after 3 days, Sienna agreed to meet him at a coffee shop, neutral territory where she wouldn't be overwhelmed by memories of their life together. Damien looked terrible when he arrived. Dark circles under his eyes, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sitting across from her. "Talk," Sienna said, her arms crossed protectively. "Rachel and I met in college," Damien began. "We dated for 4 years, got engaged, planned a wedding, but we wanted different things. She wanted to focus on career, travel, freedom. I wanted a family, a home, roots. We realized we loved each other, but we weren't in love. So we ended the engagement mutually, amicably. When I started my firm, she came on as a business partner because she's brilliant at what she does." "Why didn't you tell me this?" Sienna asked, her voice small. "Because I'm an idiot," Damien said simply. "Because it felt like ancient history, irrelevant to us. Because I was scared that if you knew I worked closely with my ex, You doubt my feelings for you. And I can't bear the thought of you doubting me. But I do doubt you now, Sienna said, tears falling. Not because of Rachel, but because you hid it. How can I believe you when you say there are no more secrets? There aren't, Damien said urgently, reaching across the table for her hands. Sienna, I swear on everything I hold sacred. Rachel is part of my professional life. Nothing more. You are my heart, my world, my everything. Sienna pulled her hands away. I need time, she said. I need space to think about whether I can move past this. Don't do this, Damien begged, his voice breaking. Don't let one mistake destroy what we have. Please, Sienna. I'm lost without you. Looking at his anguished face, Sienna felt her heart shatter. She loved him so much it physically hurt. But she also felt betrayed, wounded in a way she didn't know how to heal. I don't know if love is enough, she whispered. I don't know if I can trust you again. And without trust, what do we have? She stood to leave, and Damien stood too, desperate. Sienna, don't give up on us. Remember that first night? Remember what we promised each other? We promised forever. We promised to fight for this. You promised to love me softly, Sienna said, her voice hollow. But what happened next broke my heart. Maybe some promises are too beautiful to keep. She walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Damien standing there with tears streaming down his face. As she drove away, she looked at the wedding ring still on her finger, remembering the joy of their wedding day, the perfection of their honeymoon, the happiness she'd felt just days ago. Everything had changed so fast. One moment of discovery had shattered their fairy tale. Back at her parents' house, Sienna lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from Damien, each one more heartbroken than the last. Part of her wanted to run back to him, to forgive and forget, to reclaim their happiness. But another part, the part that had been hurt and betrayed, wondered if she could ever truly trust him again. The sun set outside her window, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere across the city, Damien was alone in their penthouse, surrounded by memories of what they'd built together. And Sienna was here, alone with her shattered heart, wondering if love really could conquer all, or if some betrayals were too deep to overcome. Their story had begun with a promise whispered in darkness. It might end with a heart broken by secrets kept in light. Only time would tell if they could find their way back to each other, or if this was truly the end of their beautiful, painful, impossible love.